In the year 1066, a massive Viking army landed on the shores of England. Its leader was feared across Europe. He had fought in distant lands, served emperors, accumulated enormous wealth, survived countless battles, and spent his entire life chasing greatness. Many believed he was the greatest warrior of his age. His name was Harald Hardrada, and history would remember him as the last great Viking king. This is his story. Long before Harald became king, he was born into a Norway that was divided and unstable. Power was constantly contested. Local rulers fought for influence, and ambitious leaders dreamed of uniting the kingdom under a single crown. Harald was born around the year 1015. He belonged to a noble family and grew up in a world where warfare was a way of life. From an early age, he learned the skills expected of a Viking warrior. He trained with weapons, learned leadership, and listened to stories of kings, battles, and conquest. But his life would change forever while he was still a teenager. In 1030, Norway was shaken by a major conflict. Harald's half-brother, King Olaf Haraldsson, attempted to reclaim the Norwegian throne. A fierce battle followed. The Battle of Stiklestad. Harald fought alongside his brother. He was only a young warrior, but he entered the battle determined to prove himself. The fighting was brutal. Steel clashed against steel. Warriors fell across the battlefield, and by the end of the day, Olaf was dead. The battle was lost. Norway fell into the hands of Olaf's enemies. For Harald, the consequences were devastating. Wounded and hunted, he was forced to flee his homeland. Many men would have accepted defeat. Harald did not. Instead, exile became the beginning of one of the most extraordinary journeys in Viking history. After escaping Norway, Harald traveled east. He moved through the lands of Kievan Rus, a powerful state that connected Scandinavia with the Byzantine Empire. There, he served under Prince Yaroslav the Wise. Harald quickly earned a reputation for courage and military skill, but he had larger ambitions. He wanted wealth, power, and eventually a kingdom of his own. To achieve those goals, he journeyed even farther south, toward the greatest city in Europe, Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire. For a Viking warrior, Constantinople must have seemed unbelievable. Its massive walls, grand palaces, and immense wealth dwarfed anything found in Scandinavia. Harald entered the service of the Byzantine Emperor as a member of the elite Varangian Guard. The Varangians were famous warriors, many of them Scandinavians, trusted to protect the emperor himself. It was one of the most prestigious military positions in the world. Harald thrived there. Over the following years, he fought in campaigns across the empire. He battled pirates in the Mediterranean, fought rebels, participated in military expeditions in Sicily, and gained experience that few Viking leaders could match. Where most Vikings spent their lives fighting local wars, Harald fought on an international stage. Every campaign increased his reputation. Every victory increased his wealth. According to historical accounts, he accumulated enormous treasures during his years of service: gold, silver, jewels, and rewards from successful campaigns. By the time he left Constantinople, Harald was no longer a wandering exile. He was one of the wealthiest and most experienced warriors in northern Europe. Yet despite his success, he never forgot Norway. The throne remained his ultimate goal. Eventually, Harald returned north, armed with wealth, military experience, and political ambition. Norway was still divided. Power struggles continued, and Harald saw an opportunity. After years of negotiations, alliances, and conflict, he finally became King of Norway. For many rulers, achieving the throne would have been enough. For Harald, it was only the beginning. As king, he worked to strengthen royal authority. He expanded his influence, punished rivals, and attempted to bring greater unity to the kingdom. His rule was often harsh, but it was effective. Harald believed that strong kingdoms required strong rulers. Over time, his power grew. Yet even as king, he remained restless. He was still a Viking at heart, and Vikings rarely stopped seeking new opportunities. Soon, his attention turned toward England. England had long been connected to Scandinavian politics, Viking kings had ruled there before, and Harald believed he had a legitimate claim to the English throne. When the English king Edward the Confessor died in 1066, a succession crisis erupted. Several powerful men claimed the crown. One of them was Harald Hardrada. Convinced that England belonged to him, Harald assembled a massive invasion force. Hundreds of ships, thousands of warriors, veterans hardened by years of combat. It would become one of the largest Viking invasions in history. When Harald arrived in England, his campaign began successfully. His forces defeated local English armies. At the Battle of Fulford, the Vikings achieved a major victory. For a moment, it appeared that Harald's dream might finally come true. After decades of warfare, exile, and ambition, the English throne seemed within reach. But history often changes in an instant. Unknown to Harald, another army was moving rapidly toward him, the army of King Harold Godwinson, the newly crowned King of England. Marching at incredible speed, Harold surprised the Viking forces near Stamford Bridge. Many Vikings were unprepared. Some had even left parts of their armor behind because they expected negotiations, not battle. What followed would become one of the most famous battles in medieval history. The Battle of Stamford Bridge. The fighting was intense. Viking warriors resisted fiercely. Legends tell of a lone Viking holding a bridge against numerous attackers before finally being killed. Whether every detail is true or not, the determination of Harold's army is beyond doubt. But courage alone could not change the outcome. During the battle, Harald Hardrada was struck by an arrow. The great Viking king fell. After a lifetime spent chasing glory, wealth, and power, his journey ended on an English battlefield. His army collapsed soon afterward. The invasion failed. The dream of a Viking England vanished. Historians often describe Stamford Bridge as the end of the Viking Age. For nearly 3 centuries, Vikings had shaped European history. They raided kingdoms, established settlements, founded dynasties, and transformed entire regions. But after Harold's defeat, the era of great Viking conquests largely came to an end. In many ways, Harald Hardrada represented the final chapter of that age. He was a warrior, an explorer, a mercenary, a king, and an empire builder. His life combined nearly every element associated with Viking legend: exile, adventure, treasure, battle, and ambition without limits. Few figures in medieval history lived such an extraordinary life. Even fewer left behind such a powerful legacy. Harold never achieved his dream of ruling England, but perhaps his story became something even greater. Because while kingdoms rise and fall, legends endure. And more than 9 centuries after his death, the name Harald Hardrada is still remembered. Not simply as a king, but as the last great Viking king. Yet while Harold's death marked the end of one era, another Viking story had begun centuries earlier on the banks of a great river in France. A story of thousands of Viking warriors, hundreds of ships, and a city that refused to surrender. The next chapter takes us to Paris, and to the day Vikings attacked one of Europe's greatest cities.